I'll analyze Sandman Season 2's second part, covering mythological references, gods, and more. Let's begin. The first part was already analyzed on the channel in the Mythological Analysis playlist. Check out other videos, like the Gorford 2018 one. I recommend it since it was fun to make and turned out great. I'll put it on the end screen, so after this video you can check it out. The second part focuses on Morpheus killing his son Orpheus and later being pursued by the Furies, or also the Moirai, or the Graces, or the Kindly Ones. Anyway, they have 300 different names, and in the last episode of the first part, we end up seeing them in action. The Moirai are responsible for cutting a person's thread of life or fate. In the case of the Moirai, the one who did this was Atropos, while Lachesis kinda measured the thread of life and Clotho spun it. Episode 7 begins with Morpheus visiting Destiny, hoping to find a way to escape the Furies. Destiny makes this clear, especially when the Furies object to being called by that name.
And under old laws, the Furies.
You're not supposed to call them that.
The goddesses of vengeance, known as the Kindly Ones.
Prefer the Kindly Ones. Morpheus also mentions they would be goddesses of vengeance, which is true in Greek mythology. We'll discuss that later. In this part, Morpheus looks at the Book of Destiny with his trademark square Minecraft face. After that, we end up going to the Kindly One's house, where they're working, doing the job of the Moirai, which they also represent in this universe, weaving and taking care of the thread of life. Then Morpheus visits, insisting he isn't trying to appease the Furies or avoid death. It's clear to me that's why he went there. He even brought offerings, herbs, and a badger.
I brought gifts. He even brought herbs and something sacred to Hecate, or a weasel.
I'm not sure. What animal is that? These offerings were tied to Hecate's aspect, also represented by the Kindly Ones. Herbs were common in rituals for Hecate. For the weasel or badger, that's linked to a story where Hecate transforms a witch with unusual fetishes into a weasel. Next, we see Loki and Puck in the church. Loki is Pope and Puck is Bishop. There are a couple in the story, right? It's odd to picture two tricksters as partners. I don't believe they would get along that well, so much so that later on, we'll see that they really didn't work out. If it were in the original mythology, Loki with a leprechaun appearing as a child would be really strange. It's good they made Puck an adult here. Morpheus calls in a favor from Loki, who struggles to keep agreements.
Are you going to regret using me for this?
It's not in my nature to be trustworthy and...
Saying that it's not in his nature to be trustworthy. Really, in mythology, he wasn't at all. So much so that all the plans he made and all the deals ended up going wrong. Like in the construction of Mjolnir, when he made a deal with Brock that if Brock beat the sons of Ivaldi in a competition of crafting tools and weapons, Loki eventually escapes with his head, but his mouth is sewn shut.
Fairy has an army led by Titania and her sub-commander. Who would fit that role?
Well, in that case, I don't recall Titania leading an army, do I?
You have a beautiful face, Simon. You don't mind lending it to me, do you?
Puck and Loki team up to disrupt the dream by placing someone from Daniel's mansion where he slept, using kind of a fairy dust. This fairy dust doesn't exist in the original story, okay? What Puck used was kind of a juice from the love flower to make people fall in love. Now, he never used a sleeping powder, actually. The one who used that in the legends was Sandman himself, or Joan Pistana. Yes?
And not me, because not Titania, Odin, or your family.
I could have the most powerful army you can imagine.
Well, actually, Odin helping out with his army of Einherjar and also with other gods. It would be interesting to see, especially if we get a brief explanation of how it all began in the Sandman universe, where it started with only night.
Where, from the very beginning, there was night, and night had no boundaries and was infinite.
Mythologies offer various creation stories, but here Greek mythology seems more prominent, despite the inclusion of Odin, Thor, and other gods. I'll focus on the Telgonia of Exile, which states that chaos existed at the beginning, containing matter. From all we know, both good and bad, NYX, the night in Greek mythology, emerge from chaos. We end up knowing time. In this universe, Morpheus's father is Hypnos, who is also the god of sleep in Greek mythology. And he also says that time existed at the beginning of everything, also in Greek mythology. I could even tell you that time, Chronos, comes much later in the era of the Titans. However, there is another Chronos in Greek mythology, also called Ion. This would also be the god of time, specifically ages. And this one would have emerged at the beginning of time, forming himself, of course, according to the Orphic tradition. This one matches the time in the Sandman universe, but he isn't connected to Morpheus or Sandman's mother. So even though she resembles Nyx, including the starry cloak, right? They say Nyx wore a veil and covered the sky at night, but she's never actually called Nyx then in the story, right at this part. So Cluracan ends up going back there to the dreaming to find Nula and take her back to Fairy, because the kindly ones eventually went there and could kill Nula. This is a good time to note that Nula and Cluracan come from Celtic mythology. Yes, Nula's name is very similar to Fiannuala, one of the children of Lear who was turned into a swan by her stepmother. I share this story in my video covering all of Celtic mythology in order. Now, Cluracan would be kind of a character from folklore who ends up being a very mischievous fairy who loves beer and usually hangs out in cellars and taverns. At the end of the episode, Puck kidnaps Daniel, and his mother discovers he's missing. And the next episode happens with Nula leaving. She goes to the fairy world, which wasn't called fairy, but was as beautiful as shown in the series. But actually, the portals to the fairy world, or Sids, were kind of caves or holes in trees, and not a magical portal like it appears there. Afterward, Sunny visits Despair, and they discover Daniel was kidnapped by Puck and Loki. We already see Loki doing what he does best, tricking people. Then,
Guys, already seeing him. What happened?
I've never seen a better portrayal of Loki doing this, even better than Marvel's Loki. Afterward, Sunny gets Constantine to help find Daniel, then calls Loki the god of fire.
The kidnappers are the Norse god of chaos and fire.
And I'll tell you right now, no, Loki was never a god of fire, but I'll talk more about that in a bit. And we see the Moirai or the Furies going to visit Daniel's mother. And no, it wasn't common for the Moirai or the Furies to visit humans, not even if they were their relatives. We have this really good scene of Loki talking about his children, who do exist in mythology. And yes, there were 6 you never wanted
To have children.
Never.
And I had 6.
6, you never mention them.
And what about the wolf Fenrir, the serpent Jormungandr, Hela, the horse, and Sleipnir? He also had children with Sigyn, the goddess, Nari, and Narfi. As Loki mentioned in that scene,
2 wolves, since Odin made my 3rd son a wolf and killed the 4th.
Odin made one a wolf. He forced him to kill the other and used his guts to tie Loki up as punishment, binding him under a snake-dripping venom until Ragnarok, an almost eternal torment. That's terrible, right? It'd be even worse if you didn't like, subscribe, or share the video, since that really helps me. If you want to learn more about Sandman's story beyond the series, I'll share a link to the Sandman comics in the pinned comment. Take advantage of the sale, okay? I'll also leave some other mythology books if you're interested.
Where's my Puck? Cruel and ruthless.
I'm only harsh with those who deserve it. Daniel is innocent and hasn't done anything wrong.
In this scene, Puck claims he was only cruel to those who deserved it. But that's not actually true in the stories. Puck was cruel, especially to those who didn't offer him gifts, even if they didn't deserve it. Constantine and Dream visit Mrs. Hall, but nothing significant happens regarding mythology. Dream returns to the dreaming, proving my point about the issue with 2 tricksters together.
Puck.
He's not a pawn, just a baby.
Especially if one is Loki, since he takes his role seriously, even if it means killing a child, as in this case. He plunged his world into chaos, to Ragnarok, even if it meant his own death. In the end, he realizes this and takes Daniel out, at least for now. After that, we see Dream kind of meeting his friend there and also freeing a guy he had put into an eternal sleep. Next, there's an intriguing scene where Loki tricks Puck and turns into Dream, showcasing Loki's talent for transformation. After that, he ends up tricking Puck again, when they're together putting him to sleep and then taking Daniel and putting him in the fire. And at that moment, he talks about the tale of Demeter and Demophon.
Do you know it? The one about Demeter.
And in that story, Demeter kind of ends up receiving really good hospitality. To thank the king, she feeds his son Ambrosia day and night, then places him in the fireplace to burn away his mortality and make him immortal. And at the beginning of this episode, we don't really have that much mythology, right? We have the new Corinthian teaming up with Constantine and Loki, tricking Lady Hal. Sandman is stuck in his job, while Kurakan wakes up after what seems like a huge hangover. Well, then we have Loki saying that he would be a god of fire. Again, this thing in the series, well...
Because I am Loki, god of fire and cunning and hatred.
As I said, Loki wasn't the god of fire. This is due to a name confusion in Norse mythology, because in a certain story there's a character named Logi, who would be the wildfire, and even has a contest with Loki himself. So, no, Loki would not be a god of fire, and he wouldn't be a god of hate either. And after that, we have Delirium going there to meet Destiny. Discussing her missing dog, Constantine uses mead to summon Odin, who actually loved mead. And his rituals involve that. And a claw for Loki, the god of fire. And so Loki. Cigarette rituals didn't exist in Viking times, but today, modern rituals often involve tobacco and cigarettes. For him, well, after that we end up having Odin's return in the series, at least for a few minutes. We have the dog lady meeting Lita Hall. Loki goes to see the result of his ritual involving Daniel, and talks again about Demeter's ritual with Demophon.
The goddess Demeter put the boy Prince Demophon in the fire to burn away his humanity.
So he would become a god. Puck leaves, realizing Loki is even crazier than him, and Constantine tracks Loki. They find Puck, who easily gives them Loki's room number. So we perform a ritual with the Lady of the Dogs, invoking the Moirai, Furies, or similar beings. I'm not sure what this ritual is, but for rituals with beings from Greek mythology, I think some sacrifices were missing, like a goat or even the dogs there. Delirio asks Dream for help, and he agrees to help her find her lost puppy. But since he can't leave or the kindly ones will hunt him, he lets the little gargoyle accompany her. Constantine and Corinthian find Loki's room, where Loki tries to trick Constantine by posing as Dream. Corinthian notices and beats up Loki. Then Odin and Thor show up again to take Loki back, and Loki says this amazing line. Did you know that Thor's wife has a birthmark on her thigh in the shape of an anvil? I didn't know that. How do you know? She let me lick it. Odin tells Dream he can die in peace, as he holds no grudges for freeing Loki. So we have Lita Hall meeting the Furies again, and with them saying that they hate that nickname. You are the Furies. Yes, we are the Furies, but what a horrible name. They mention the so-called blood debt in Greek mythology and the Furies, who embody it. The kindly ones are three underworld goddesses of vengeance who collect blood debts, which would be those people who ended up killing someone from their own family. That's why they keep saying Morpheus killed his son Orpheus. Their names are Alecto, Tisiphone, and Megara. By the episode's end, Titania straightforwardly kills Morpheus after summoning him. And then, the kindly ones arrive in the dreaming and kill the green of the violinist. Well, in this penultimate episode, we start with Abel dying. And then even the kindly ones end up confirming that, in a way, he really is the Cain and Abel from the Bible, because they say he would be Eve's son. I am Abel. We know who you are, Abel, son of Eve, Abel, brother of Cain. Then we also see the Pumpkinhead dying, and then we have the guardians of the palace. Pegasus, the winged horse born from Medusa, later served as Bellerophon's mount. The griffin is an animal with an eagle's head and wings and a lion's body. And in the center, we have a random dragon, which I don't know exactly who it is, probably doesn't exist in mythology either. Dream shows up, saves the griffin, and removes the kindly ones, kind of waking up Lita Hall momentarily. And we have this scene of the kindly ones trying to sort of convince Lita Hall to continue with the plan, it reminded me of the Furies from Mythology tormenting their victims. Then Dream tries to kill Lita Hall but stops after being hit by a rock. Here, I might not need to break the circle maybe, but she wasn't the one who got you into this mess. You did that yourself. Lastly, Morpheus attempts to speak with the Furies while Death arrives in the dreaming. Dream's raven returns to the palace to ask Death to visit the dreaming. Morpheus ultimately surrenders to Death, and Daniel becomes the new Dream. In the final episode, Morpheus's funeral is attended by many friends and characters from the series. Daniel reunites with his mother, discovers his powers, and even resurrects some people. Or not exactly people, but dreams. And everything ends with Daniel being welcomed by his new family, the Superfoot. If you like the video, please like and subscribe to Mythology to support me. Check out my mythological analysis playlist. You'll find more videos like this one.